Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 10th of August. I'm Erin Viner. This is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Israeli and Palestinian Authority security forces are working together to maintain calm today following a series of terror attacks this past week, including last night's stabbing of an Israeli man at a gas station on Highway 443 by a Palestinian terrorist who was shot and killed. We get more in this report from IBA's Dennis Zinn.
The 26-year-old Israeli driver was filling his car tank at the petrol station near Bet Horon on Highway 443 when he was attacked from behind by a knife-wielding terrorist. According to eyewitnesses, the assailant ran towards the driver shouting Allahu Akbar before stabbing him. The terrorist then tried to stab others. When a scuffle broke out, he fled. He was subsequently shot dead by IDF troops who rushed to the site. The identity of the attacker is still unknown, but it's believed he came from one of the Palestinian villages in the area. Earlier this month, after the Duma arson, when a Palestinian family home was set ablaze by Jewish terrorists, causing the death of the young father and his infant child, and severely burning the mother and 4-year-old sister, the security forces warned of high motivation by Palestinians to take revenge. Since then, besides last night's incident, 3 other serious Palestinian attacks have taken place. The day after the Duma arson, gunmen shot at an Israeli car near the Kochav HaShachar settlement. Luckily, no one was hit. 3 days later, near Bet Hanina in northern Jerusalem, an Israeli woman was badly burned when her car was firebombed. And on Thursday last week, 3 soldiers were seriously injured in a ramming attack on Highway 60. The driver of the vehicle was shot dead. Nevertheless, while the public is urged to remain alert, sources in the security establishment revealed that Israel and the Palestinian Authority are working closely together to try and calm the atmosphere and prevent further terror. Dennis Zinn, IBA News.
The Israel Prison Service has decided to set up a special emergency care unit at its main medical center in order to treat hunger-striking prisoners. The development comes as hunger-striking Palestinian administrative detainee Mohammed Alan was today moved under tight security to the Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon after doctors refused to force-feed him at the Soroka Medical Center, where he has been staying since Friday. This is the 55th day that Alan has refused to eat. Even though the Knesset recently approved a law to force-feed prisoners whose lives are in immediate danger, the Israel Medical Association announced that doctors will not do so without Alan's consent. Personnel at the Ashkelon Medical Center say that they hope to convince the 31-year-old prisoner to cooperate. And meanwhile, over 100 other Palestinian prisoners participating in a mass hunger strike since last week have decided to temporarily end their protest after authorities agreed to accept a partial list of their demands regarding prison conditions. A major synagogue in Givat Ze'ev is set to be torn down because it was built on privately owned Arab land. The civil administration has begun to evacuate Ayelet HaShachar after the Supreme Court ordered it be demolished on August 17th after rejecting congregants' claims of having legally purchased the land and built the sanctuary with all the necessary permits. All religious items, including Torah scrolls, are now being removed for safekeeping, along with other equipment used at the synagogue, which has been the site of worship for 20 years. The left-wing NGO Yesh Din initiated the lawsuit, filed the petition on behalf of the Palestinian owners who are rejecting the congregants' recent offers to buy the land. For the first time since the outbreak of the Syrian civil war in 2011, Russia appears to be progressing with a serious plan to end the conflict together with Saudi Arabia and Iran. We get more in this report from IBA's R.A. O'Sullivan.
Iran and Russia have stood by the side of Syrian President Bashar Assad from the beginning, but for the past year and a half, there have been secret talks brokered by Moscow to come up with a plan for saving what's left of Syria. According to Mabat's Arabic affairs reporter Oded Granot, Russian President Vladimir Putin met in June with Saudi Defense Minister in St. Petersburg. There, Putin persuaded the Saudis to have a direct meeting with the Syrians. And this happened on July 17th. And the Syrians for the first time sent to Jeddah Ali Mamlouk, the Syrian National Security Advisor and one of Assad's closest advisors. The diplomacy will continue tomorrow in Moscow when the Saudi Foreign Minister Adel al-Jubeir meets with Putin. According to Granot, these are the 5 proposals being put forth by the Russians to end the Syrian civil war. Assad will give up the presidency, but the Alawite regime will remain in place. the Saudis will stop supporting the rebels. Iran will stop meddling in Yemen. Hezbollah will withdraw its forces from Lebanon. There will be a joint effort against ISIS. The Saudis were the first to say yes, but the Iranians and Syrians were hesitant to give up on Assad. But later, they were willing to sacrifice him as long as the Alawites remained in control of the regime. Diplomacy has so far been a total failure in the 4-year war that has claimed the lives of 250,000 people and forced over 10 million from their homes. The United States has played down the prospects for this Russian plan to work. But if Putin is able to put this together without the Americans, he will be able to reap the jackpot all by himself. Aria O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Turning to Turkey, which has been the site of multiple attacks and violence, a female terrorist is being held by police in Istanbul after she allegedly opened fire at the U.S. consulate with an accomplice last night. During an exchange of gunfire with security forces, the second suspect, who is believed to be a male, managed to escape. American diplomatic missions in Turkey have frequently been targeted by terrorists in the past. There were no casualties in the latest incident, although a separate attack on the outskirts of the city turned deadly when a bomb ripped through the police station in Sultanbeyli neighborhood, reportedly killing 3 officers. Both armed assailants were also killed during a subsequent firefight with security. The blast ignited a fire that caused part of a nearby 3-story building to collapse. All told, at least 10 people in Turkey's largest city were injured. The country has been on a heightened state of alert since the July 24th launching of what Ankara refers to as its synchronized war on terror that includes airstrikes against the Islamic State in Syria as well as Kurdish forces in northern Iraq and the detention of hundreds of suspects on Turkish soil. Protests against Turkish attacks on the Kurdish PKK have been furious. The southern city of Cizre was again the scene of renewed violence as pro-Kurdish activists battled police for the 3rd consecutive night. The protesters hurled firebombs at security forces who responded with tear gas. A bulldozer being used by the protesters to dig trenches in attempts to prevent police from entering their neighborhood erupted in flames. Earlier in the day, thousands of pro-Kurdish demonstrators gathered in Istanbul where they called for peace and protested against President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's AK party and the government's military campaign. According to the state-run news agency, just since the start of this month, more than 260 militants have been killed, including senior PKK figures, and at least 400 others have been wounded. The situation for Christians in the Middle East continues to deteriorate and has now descended into sheer genocide. This, according to Juliana Teymorazi of the Iraqi Christian Relief Council, which seeks to help thousands who have been displaced through religious persecution and ethnic cleansing, and now joins me here in the studio. Thank you for coming in this afternoon.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, you founded and you are the president of this organization, although you were born in Iran. Can you tell me how you came to be involved and what kind of work you do?
Sure. I pretty much escaped Iran from the religious harassment because I'm an Assyrian Catholic from Iran. And as you know, the Christian Assyrians in Iraq, also known as Chaldeans and Syriacs, have come under scrutiny and persecution since 2003. I founded the Iraqi Christian Relief Council to really educate not only the Americans, since I'm based in America, but also the world about this persecution. And what is really missing, Aaron, is the human tragedy that is not really being talked about. Majority of the things that we talk about is the political ramification of what ISIS is doing. But the over 1.2 million Assyrian Christians have been displaced, and this is why I'm here to talk about.
What do you think can be done, Juliana, to alleviate the plight of Christians in the Middle East?
There is really the biggest solution is to have our own state, such as the coexistence that was there on the ground during the Mesopotamia time, Bet Nahran, or land between rivers. Today, a geographical location called the Nineveh Plain truly is the answer, where we, this autonomous region, can protect ourselves, and the West can really help us rebuild our lives. And people who are living in diaspora are willing and ready to go back, but that's only and only if IS has been defeated. And we cannot do it without the Western intervention.
Now, I understand that your mission also works to educate Christians about the theological, historical, and political issues that surround Israel and the Jewish people. Can you please explain the significance of this mission?
Well, I believe that there are strike resemblance between what we're going through today and what the Jewish nation had gone through for many, many years. So I think if we can look at how Jewish people have come to having their own state, I think we can learn a lot from that and we can apply that to today. And I'm a part of an organization called the Philos Project,
I was just about to ask you
Yes.
about that, because that's actually why you're here right now.
Exactly. Philos Project is an important entity that educates Americans, gets involved, the Western Christians, into the matters of the Middle East. So we are here. We actually stopped in Auschwitz. We started our journey into the East from America, first stopping at Auschwitz, seeing truly the horrors of what Nazis did at the time. And then we went to Amman, where thousands of Iraqi Christian refugees are displaced. And then we're here in the Holy Land. So we have 20 creme de la creme students that were showing really from theory to application what the Middle East is like. And we're hoping that these 20 young men and women will be our advocates in the media, in Congress, in the United States, and really be the great writers to advocate for our plight.
And what was their reaction being here in Israel and seeing Yad Vashem?
They saw the Auschwitz, and they were blown away at the horror that a human can really inflict on another. And their resolve is so much stronger now to advocate for Israel and advocate for the Christians who are persecuted in the Middle East.
Juliana Teimorazi, thank you very much for being our guest. Good luck with your mission.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
In other news, the number of apartments sold in 1 month reached an all-time high in June, when a record-breaking 16,000 were purchased by consumers who were apparently anxious to avoid paying the new tax that was placed on second homes that went into effect the 1st of July. The increase was introduced by Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon in an effort to make the acquisition of real estate for investment purposes less attractive, so that the market would be opened up to people who still don't own their own homes. But so far, the plan seems to have had the opposite effect by pushing many buyers to close deals before the July deadline. Just 20% of the June properties were sold to young couples moving into their first homes. There was a whopping 42% increase over sales in May and a 15% rise compared with June of last year. The heads of the Jewish Agency have informed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the organization is withdrawing from a program with the government aimed at strengthening ties between Israel and diaspora communities. Here with more is IBA's political correspondent, Eli Wogelenter.
A letter sent by the Jewish Agency last Thursday to the Prime Minister was an angry memo complaining over the diaspora's ministry's minimizing of the Jewish Agency's role in outreach to world Jewry. In the letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu, Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky and Chairman of the Board of Governors Charles Ratner wrote that their organization would stop cooperating in a large-scale initiative launched 2 years ago to connect diaspora Jewry with Israel. Known as the Joint Initiative of the Government of Israel and World Jewry, the project's goal was to create programming to draw world Jewry closer to Israel, jointly funded by the Israeli government and major Jewish organizations. The letter said those organizations had been shut out of any and all meaningful dialogue about the initiative, and that until the program is returned to its original concept and direction, we no longer see this as the joint initiative between the government of Israel and world Jewry, and therefore can no longer be part of it. And they added that this undertaking has transformed simply into a funding framework for programs to be conducted by a single government ministry. That unnamed ministry is the Diaspora Affairs Ministry, headed by Naftali Bennett, which, along with the Prime Minister's office, is responsible for managing the initiative within the Israeli government. About 3 months ago, a new authority under Bennett's ministry called the Initiative for the Future of the Jewish People received special accelerated approval to run the program. Its stated aim was to fight the weakening of the Jewish foundations of the family unit and the significant increase in critical discourse against Israel. Critics say those aims smells of condescension and may lead to a confrontation with large groups in the diaspora. The idea behind the initiative was to have the State of Israel invest in projects aimed at strengthening Jewish identity with a series of new program opportunities in Israel and abroad. In June 2014, the Israeli government voted to allocate 190 million shekels to the program, with the company required to raise an additional 370 million shekels from Jewish organizations and philanthropists. However, the major Jewish organizations have yet to provide their matching funds and may not do so following the Jewish Agency's withdrawal. Planning for the initiative has been slow and has yet to launch specific programs. The Prime Minister's office said it received the agency's letter and that the issue is being dealt with. The Diaspora Ministry has not issued a response. Erin?
Thanks for that report. History buffs should take note that the Associated Press and Movie Tone News have released a vast array of video archives on YouTube, allowing the public free access to 1 million minutes of news clips dating back to 1895. Here's one example related to us about the last moments of the British Mandate of Palestine.
At Haifa, the last British troops leave Palestine, and very few of them can have been sorry. As the tanks and soldiers went aboard the transports, the thought that a difficult and thankless job had been well done must have mattered much less than the prospect of going home. Lieutenant General Macmillan, their CNC, was on the quayside as embarkation went forward. The Union Jack was hauled down and the doors closed for good on the British Mandate. Later in the day, Israel's flag was flying over Haifa, and the Prime Minister, Mr. Ben-Gurion, was there for the taking over ceremony. A sad chapter had closed, and the world hopes that UNO will be able to find a satisfactory solution to the Palestine problem.
That looks great. Now taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today put in a mixed performance while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up across the board. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather, and if you enjoyed today, you're certain to be happy with tomorrow, when temperatures and conditions should pretty much be the same. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow when Laura Cornfield will be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.